I turned off news altogether.
I hate to say it, but I don't trust much of anything.
It's the rage bait.
It feels like it's trying to divide people.
If we got clear facts, maybe we could calm down a little.
NBC News brings you clear reporting. Let's meet at the facts. Let's move forward from there. NBC News, reporting for America.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana makes car selling fast and easy from start to finish. Enter your license plate or VIN and get a real offer in seconds, down to the penny. If you accept, Carvana will come pick up your car from your driveway. Or you can drop it off at one of our car vending machines. Either way, you get paid instantly. It's fast, transparent, and 100% online. Car selling that saves your time. That's Carvana.
Carvana.
Pickup fees may apply.
Welcome back to the Survival and Basic Badass podcast with today it's Ken and Chuck. Ken is a legal defense expert, and I wanted to talk about what do you do when there is a shooting incident? You know, like almost everybody who listens to this show, if it's legal where you are pretty much concealed carry people and like to, have some way to defend themselves. And, it turns out that it sometimes becomes a reality that you actually have to defend yourself or somebody else. And obviously in a lot of states and really anywhere, it's very concerning to do that because one, you're taking a life, which is obviously a big traumatic deal. But I mean, obviously you're doing it for the right reasons, or you believe you are. So therefore, that part you can kind of get around, but even so, there are huge ramifications. And so what happens? What do you do when well, first, Ken, introduce yourself a little bit, just kind of give a little background here.
My name's Ken Hardy. I'm a regional manager for a legal defense company called CCW Safe. Throughout the conversation here, we'll probably get into the meat and potatoes a little bit of what we do and how we're different and what have you. I have a background in law enforcement, spent about 12 years in law enforcement. It's kind of pulling on that experience that drives me today in my mission to spread the word, so to speak, evangelize about the aftermath of a self-defense incident that involves deadly force, most particularly. Companies like mine will provide legal service for any incident of self-defense, but the one that's the most traumatic and life-changing is the deadly force situation.
Right. So what do you do? So say you're, somebody breaks into your home, I guess. We'll start kind of that way. Somebody comes into your home. Obviously it varies by state, but I'm sure your reaction should always be the same. And you end up shooting somebody, protecting your family.
Well,
what do you do? What's step one?
I'm going to use my favorite word in this subject. It depends, because it depends on the circumstances. It depends on what states you're in. In some states, if someone breaks into your house, you are required to do everything you can to evade the contact with the person that has broken into your house. And there's a whole, every one of these topics have probably a couple of hours of conversation that could associate with them, because there is this depends factor. You'll find that my favorite word is depends, because there is no absolute when it comes to anything involved in self-defense. There is no absolute when it comes to anything involved in the justice system and in law enforcement. And I think what over the 9 years I've been involved in this industry, I find that there is a lot of lack of knowledge on the part of the average citizen about what happens next.
You don't get that training. You go to the classes and they, some classes absolutely are better than others, as far as the instructor, kind of covering that. But again, they have so much time and so much that they can cover. And like you said, it's such a broad scope of of what to do. You do kind of need to dig into the laws in your own state and absolutely know what kind of, stand your ground law or, duty to retreat, that kind of stuff. You really do need to dig into that where you are. But it is hard. But it is also a responsibility when you carry a gun. You need to put a little effort, it turns out.
It turns out that there is a lot of ignorance of the circumstance of using deadly force. People don't realize, you mentioned it, taking a human life, it's a big deal. But there's a lot of legal ramification after the fact. Unfortunately, there isn't enough effort to make sure that people are engaging in educating themselves beyond just firearms proficiency. And I can tell you this from my experience and knowledge, you are better off to avoid having to shoot someone than to be walking around cavalierly thinking, I'm in a constitutional carry state, I'm good to go. And that is a very scary thing. As in my work, I work in states that have concealed carry requirements, states that have constitutional carry or permitless carry, whatever you want to call it. And unfortunately, with constitutional carry and permitless carry, there's no education about the responsibility of carrying a firearm.
Man, when you jump into it, it's just, I don't know, it is overwhelming. Because also, your mind is racing when something like this happens. You're thinking about 1,000 things. It's traumatic. I mean, I think just like the first time I shot a deer, my heart's pounding and and here you're forced into defending somebody or defending yourself and life and death and all that. I mean, it's got to be intense, thinking clearly, having a clear head. And if you don't have this background knowledge, of kind of going through your laws and kind of, thinking about, I feel like, well, one, the best thing is to keep your mouth shut and get a hold of somebody who's going to protect you right away. Because you can just, people tend to, what they say, they run at the mouth when something happens.
And that's the nervous system and psychology taking over. I want to explain this. I want everybody to know that I didn't mean to do this. I didn't want to do this, all that. And those are the worst things you can say.
Right.
In the industry, we some of us use the terminology, it's shut the F up Friday. And and of course the misinformation that people have about that, they believe that if they're not talking to police candidly and willingly, that they are admitting guilt of some kind, or that they are hiding something. And there's this amendment called the Fifth Amendment, which protects your right to not incriminate yourself, and it's there for that exact reason, because of the founding fathers understanding that in situations you might not be expressing yourself accurately or correctly. And getting back to the judicial system, and I'm going to kick in the word depends again, it depends on what you say and how the judicial system seeks to use it for you or against you. And I think the other misconception is that the judicial system is on your side, and the judicial system is not on your side. It's simply there to do the best it can to find justice. And unfortunately, it gets it wrong a lot of times. And there is a saying in the legal world and the justice system: better that a guilty man go free than an innocent man spend one day in prison. Unfortunately, that's not what a lot of people in the system hold to.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's certain states that are more favored and not favored, but I feel like a jury, there's a large percentage of people who don't understand kind of the gun culture and just have had that fear instilled into them of, oh, he carries a gun, he's clearly, either crazy or whatever. Like, so you run the risk of being judged by a bunch of people who right out of the gate may assume you have no business carrying a gun. I mean, I see people on the news and interviews all the time who are like, oh my gosh, guns are horrible. And, it can end bad. So you're being judged by a mix of people who are, did he make the right call? Because obviously, if you didn't have a gun, you wouldn't have shot that guy.
And you're going to have jurors that are going to be thinking that. You shouldn't have been there. You shouldn't have been there with a gun. You could have run away. He wasn't trying to hurt you. Even though the judicial system is based on presenting facts and evidence and that kind of thing, emotion plays into the thought process, particularly in the jury room. And having fortunately had the experience of being on a jury, not on a homicide case, and usually ex-cops are never selected for jury duty or to serve. They'll have you come in and be questioned. The minute you say I'm an ex-cop, you're gone. But I was selected, and it was very interesting to see the jury process in the deliberation part of the process. It was frightening, to say the least.
I believe that. That's one of the stories I go back to. Is I only actually had jury duty once, and I was always away in the military or something. There's always something coming up, but I went in. And again, this is a long time ago. I'm sure the world has changed, but it was probably like 96, 97, I think. And the DA comes in, and it was a homicide, and I didn't get selected. But he's like, look, he goes, it's not like NCIS or things like that. He goes, these are his words. We don't have things like facts and evidence. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be good. I think you saw on my face, I'm not the right guy for that if you don't have facts and evidence. And he's like, we don't have facts and evidence. Basically, you need to listen to people and decide, did they do it or didn't they do it? And he's like, and we're going to go from there.
I'll give you a short story that along those lines. When I was in law enforcement, I was talking about a case with the prosecutor and the defense attorney. And we were just in a courtroom that wasn't in session. We were just using the courtroom as the place to talk. Uh-huh. And I said something about whatever my action had been. And I said, and that's the truth. And the defense attorney said, Deputy, we're not interested in the truth here. And he points to the bench and says, we're interested in rulings from that bench. And that.
Yep. And it's not even like you'd think the answer is what we can prove, but that's not what they're looking for.
It's theater at best. Yeah.
Yes. And so that's it. So let's kind of go down through quick. What there has to be like certain steps. Am I calling a lawyer or am I calling 911 first? What am I doing? I mean, obviously if you can save the guy's life still, that's probably supposed to be your priority, right? Tell me what's the right step.
If you feel skilled in that area, if you are calm enough to administer first aid or whatever that might be called for at the moment. Again, the answer is it depends. The next step, and of course, it's very important that you have access to an attorney immediately, not after you wait and see how things are going days and hours down the road. You need, just like that person you've shot needs immediate medical attention, you need immediate legal attention. And it's when I say immediate, you need to be able to get off the phone with 911, decide whether or not you're going to administer any kind of first aid to this person. And this is another thing about the mindset in self-defense. You have to process a lot of things in a short period of time and make a decision. And of course, in the aftermath, your mind isn't probably going to be working on all 8 cylinders, and you're going to be scattered and frantic and what have you. So the important part of being able to have access to an attorney is it's important that it's immediate and it's now. Now, this is where companies like my company come in, because the average person does not have the phone number of an attorney at 2 a.m. who is a competent criminal defense attorney. And what is so important is that you have legal advice immediately after an incident, so that you have guidance on what to say and what not to say. And so that you can invoke your Fifth Amendment right easily and say to the police, I have an attorney on retainer. He has advised me not to make any statements or answer any questions without him present, or her present if it's a female attorney. And that is the best protection a person has in the immediate aftermath of a self-defense incident. Because this is a word I'm going to use here that is lost on people that are concealed firearms carry individuals. You just committed a homicide. No matter how justified or sure you were that it was self-defense, you committed a homicide. Now, here's the problem. In an instant, you made that decision to commit a homicide to protect your life or somebody else's. There will be a long process and many people in that process that will determine if you acted appropriately. The best description is they're going to armchair quarterback your reaction in a split second, and you don't get the benefit of being a good person or somebody that knows the sheriff. It doesn't matter. And in today's world, you're going to jail because the police are going to check off the boxes. Police don't have the kind of discretion in a homicide case on the scene to go, yeah, we think this is a clean shooting. You know what? We're just going to hook this guy up, transport him downtown, book him, because this is about as serious as it gets in our society to commit a homicide.
That's the thing. So when you call up, how are you even describing it? Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's probably not ideal to be like, yeah, I just shot this guy who came into my house. Right. Is it there's been a shooting? I need an ambulance.
Well, actually,
where are we going here?
That's kind of it. You would on the 911 call, you're going to identify yourself. You're going to say the location of where you are. I've been the victim of a crime. If you've got the mindset to say that, because let's say it's your home, okay. Someone has violated your home, and there's been a shooting. Don't say,
and just leave it at that.
Leave it at that. Now, imagine in the aftermath of all of this craziness that's gone on, to have the calmness to say, send 2 ambulances, one for that guy, one for me, because I'm shook up, right? You're not going to.
Right.
The brain is going to process like that, and it's going to be a horrible event that will not get better for a long, long time, if ever. There's a lot of study, and I like to read Lieutenant Colonel Dave Grossman's stuff, and he writes a book called On Killing, and I recommend that I recommend that everybody reads that book. It's a long read, but it talks about the impact it has on you immediately and afterward about taking a human life, and what worries me in this concealed carry, firearms carrying, open carry, constitutional carry world, people don't think that they're going to be affected. And I can tell you, you can talk to guys in combat, if they'll open up to you, they don't even want to talk about what they had to do because it's too painful.
Right.
And they've put it in a box somewhere where they're managing it. And the average person who doesn't have that preparation, just because of the way they've lived their life, they never had any violence in their life.
That's one of the things. I mean, I don't know if everybody takes it away from the military or their experience, but I mean, me and my wife are always discussing about being able to separate, and compartmentalize. And I think the military does do a good job. Obviously, the suicides that vets have and things like that, obviously they're not doing a good enough job, but how do you, I don't have the right answers. I can't go in and say, well, if you said this, that everything would work out. But yeah, no, you really being able to compartmentalize it is definitely a task and a feat. So yeah, so you call, and then you're calling your legal defense. You're calling your attorney right after that 911 call. That sounds like the next step.
If you are a conscientious individual, you have understood that you're going to need legal representation. And not later, not after you see how it goes. Well, then we'll find an attorney. I saw a billboard down by McDonald's that if I slip and fall in the bus station, I'm going to get $1 million. That isn't the guy you want.
Right.
And so you need to. I like to think of preparing yourself with the legal defense aspect of your intent to carry a firearm, as the legal defense coverage is the completion of your firearms defense game plan. In other words, if you have not made arrangements to have immediate access to a competent criminal defense attorney, it's unfinished business. And and unfortunately, once people realize they need what folks like I do offer, it's too late. They've because you can't come buy a membership with us after the fact, just like you can't insure your house if it burned down and you forgot to call the insurance agent. And for me, it's a interesting process because it's very easy to make this leap and to understand the concept. But a lot of people don't ever have an opportunity to hear about it, learn about it, educate themselves about it, and take action on it. Now, here's the other part of it is in the immediate aftermath, what you would want is access to an attorney to be able to call him or her at 2:00 in the morning, which my company provides. That is, you're going to be on the phone with an attorney immediately. And a whole bunch of people during that phone call are going to get involved in the process of defending you. So basically what you have is a team of legal experts who are going to be on top of your situation immediately. And in our particular situation, to tell you how CCW Safe operates, if it's a deadly force incident, we have retired homicide detectives on staff who immediately book a flight to come to where you are to handhold you through the process if it's a deadly force situation. Because as much as it feels good to have an attorney available, you won't have someone hand-holding you. The attorney's going to maybe get hold of your wife and say, well, we're trying to get his bond set. Meanwhile, he's sitting in the county jail and he's not with the kind of people he's used to being with. And what we do, because we understand the reality of a deadly force situation, we send a person to handhold the family through the initial phase to let you know, hey, we've got it, and here's what to expect next. And I've coordinated with the attorney, and the attorney's getting a bond hearing, and whatever the whole situation requires, which invokes the word depends again, that is a serious process that is troubling to me personally, because most people reject the concept of what I'm talking about. They just reject it.
Oh, absolutely. So, but that's the thing. I mean, I think it's a given. If you shoot somebody, I got to figure at 90 to probably 99% of the time, you're going to be arrested, at that moment when you shoot. So, I mean, I can't imagine, even in, the more favorable states, a scenario where you're not. And I feel like it's always got to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal defense, even if you're the innocent guy. And that's probably like 70% of the time that you're over 100,000 in my mind, right?
You're exactly right. And this is the other thing that people don't realize. It takes that kind of money to hire that kind of an attorney who has that experience and understanding of the law and how the system works, and will go so far as to withhold exculpatory information on your behalf. So they have to know how to play dirty with the prosecution. And you're going, the prosecution, they're the ones that are looking for justice. No, they're the ones looking for a win. And that's the big deal. And you're right on with the number. To retain a competent criminal defense attorney is between $60,000 and $100,000. And retain means take your case, start working on it, and then get started. Right. And you could easily write more checks. And you have to take into consideration, you have to have money for bond. There will be a bond set on you unless there's some kind of an immediate process that says, no, this was a deadly force situation that was justified and we're letting the guy out or whatever. But I guarantee you, the night of that event, you're going to jail. I'll just tell you about a particular member we have who in Wilson, North Carolina, had a self-defense incident, and he did everything right. He eluded his attacker 3 separate occasions during one event. The guy kept finding him and tracking him down, beating the hell out of him. And finally, on the 3rd attack, the guy was chasing him. He gets to his motorcycle, calls 911, and says, "I'm being attacked. I've got a firearm." And he shoots the guy as he attacks him. And the guy was still so enraged, he was able to take him to the ground and pummel him a bit till he succumbed to the 2 shots that the member put in his chest. That's a great story to say this is how to do avoidance. That member was charged with capital murder, put in jail that day, and no bond. And long story short, we took his case to trial. We're the only company that has actually taken a case to trial. And we spent $400,000 in his defense between attorney fees, expert witness testimony, forensics re-examination, re-interviewing of witnesses and everything. And people think that comes out of the attorney fees. It doesn't. It comes out of your checking account. And it's your responsibility. And I love to say this because this is the reality of it. When you are found innocent at court, hopefully, there's no refund desk. There's nowhere in the court where you can go, "I want my money back." You got your liberty. And that's what people don't understand about the system and how unfair it is, because it will cost you that kind of money to defend yourself, even though you are assumed innocent until proven guilty, right?
So my court-appointed attorney is
well,
the right
I wouldn't
answer?
think so. And you're asking that question because you know, but no, a court-appointed attorney is usually a public defender and underpaid, understaffed, underexperienced, and without the time to be able to properly prepare for and put on a good legal defense. So here's what happens in that scenario, and prosecutors are looking for wins. That's the whole game. You walk into a courtroom with your public defender, the prosecutor goes, I've got a win here because I'm going to charge this guy a couple of levels higher than the elements of the situation require, and then we'll plead him down to a lesser charge. Well, if it's involving death of another individual, it's going to carry prison time with it. And this is another thing that people they don't think about on the front end of things. So if you're not preparing yourself legally, I tell people this all the time, please don't carry a firearm if you aren't prepared legally. And that is either having the money, which if you can buy programs like what CCW Safe offers for a couple $100 a year, why would you risk all of your assets? It's insanity not to.
Right. And that's the thing. I mean, how would you have a house and not have some kind of homeowners? It's the same thing. That's one of the things I feel like people skip the steps of. It's funny. A buddy of mine asked me, "Oh, can you clean my gun? I don't even know how to pull it apart and do anything and whatever. And it needs a, deeper clean." And he sends it to me and I look at it and I go through it and I come back and I'm like, "You've never shot this one time, have you?" I'm like, "I can see it in the barrel." And he's like, "Well, how'd you know?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I can see it." And I'm like, "But you can't be carrying a gun every day that you've never fired in your life." Right. And the same thing is, you know that guy hasn't looked into the legal ramifications of it and whatever. If he couldn't give the time to learn how to shoot it, then I imagine he didn't spend the time to learn, what matters,
and more
right?
particularly in a constitutional carry state, he's going to cavalierly walk around going, "I'm good. My state backs me." And by the way, if you don't have a permit, you go to another state, now you're in violation. So that's why permits are important. Backing up a little bit to the assignment of a public defender, if you have any assets, you're not going to be assigned one. You're going to be expected to liquidate those assets. And in different states, the level of income is what measures whether or not you'd be appointed. And like in South Carolina, I believe it's like $15,000 a year in income. You have to get your own attorney. So this whole, and to get a little political, the problem I have with the constitutional carry process or the push for it all, the political aspect of it, is that we are not talking about education on the legal side of it. And that's where you talk to any firearms instructor who has taught under old systems where states have passed constitutional carry or permitless carry. They all hate it, and not because it's affecting their number of students attending. They hate it because they know there are people carrying a firearm, like your friend that has never fired his gun.
Yep.
And the possibility to make the wrong decision, which results in a person that doesn't need to be dead and you not needing to be imprisoned, it just exponentially creates more of that possibility. And it's why I feel like my work in this regard is mission-based and educational-based more than, hey, I'm a regional manager for a company that is selling legal defense programs to people, because that's the real aspect of this. And
right. And that's, I mean, people obviously, they hear you work for a company. Obviously, in your mind, your company must be the best one, is what somebody, you would tell me, and whatever. So explain to me why CCW Safe? Like, you guys, what sets you apart? What are you guys doing for me?
I think that because we take a holistic approach, we understand we're protecting human beings, and that human beings might be killed. So there's a lot of attention paid to the reality of self-defense incidents, and that comes to play when it comes to our critical responder people that come to you. No other company in the industry comes to you with a representative who says, I've been doing this 30 years. I know how homicide investigations work. I know how the judicial system works. I'm here to comfort you, calm you, get you psychological counseling, communicate with your attorney on a level that you wouldn't understand, to communicate with him, and to calm your family, to let them be reassured that we've got this. And that's where we differ from all the other companies. I have worked for a couple of other companies in the industry. There are some integrity issues that I won't go into. And I think that like when you and I first met, your skepticism was well-founded, because there is a lot of dancing around the issues and making promises. And unfortunately, once you find out you need it and the promises aren't there, you're left holding the bag. And since we're kind of on this, to contrast why you do not want anything insurance-based in legal protection, is because they may, well, first of all, if the company doesn't exist to protect you because we want to protect you because it's holistic, and that our mission is because we know how bad this system can be for people. If I'm an insurance company, am I looking to limit my exposure and my cost? I would assume that would be the goal, right? Because as much as they may exist, they exist to be an insurance company and to be profitable. Here's where insurance becomes a problem. They may adequately support you throughout the judicial process. If you are found guilty or plead guilty by insurance regulation and requirement, they must terminate their relationship with you, which means they will not provide legal representation for an appeal. And this is because that hurts, because they are under legal obligation to no longer continue that representation and to engage in a thing called recoupment, which means to show good faith to the regulators that we aren't insuring criminals and crimes. We are going after our money. And see, the key word there being, you can't buy insurance for a crime. You can't buy insurance to insure homicide or to insure bank robbery or whatever. So until you are found guilty, you haven't committed a crime. Okay, so it's a loophole. I personally don't want to be a part of any representation that is using a loophole in the law to defend me, and then not run
Right.
the rest of the race with me if I'm, God forbid, found guilty.
Because they're going to use the same loophole
Exactly.
against
Right.
you.
So
Right.
it's
And that's,
all in, the odds are all
yeah.
in favor of the company insuring. So that's the biggest aspect that people need to delve into when they're choosing legal defense programs. Is there any insurance company component to what I'm doing? Now, there are companies out there that are what we call member benefit, which is what CCW Safe is. But they have some components that are insurance based. And because of those components, all of their agents or all the representatives have to be licensed insurance agents. Well, that creates a conundrum too. And usually it comes under their civil liability coverage. With CCW Safe, we are so financially stable and capitalized that we have our own civil liability coverage. And I don't mean representation, but I'm talking about should you lose in civil court. You could prevail in criminal court and lose in civil court, i.e. the O.J. Simpson case.
Right.
And you can purchase optional civil liability from us. If you were to lose on the civil liability side, we pay that out of money we have set aside for that, not out of some insurance policy that is attached to your representation. We are totally without any obligation to any insurance type of regulation or corporate philosophy or whatever. So we can operate autonomously and do what it takes to defend our member.
Absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, you guys were next to me at prepper camp. And so as people know, I heard the spiel over and over and over. And I'm like, wow, because I came into it. I 100% see the need. Like, I know it's going to cost money if, there's a shooting. That had been clear in my mind, especially I got my first concealed carry in New York State. And, I can see, saw people who, were completely in the right and go to prison and spend tons of money. And, it was amazing. But every company I looked into, the money was there, and I didn't feel like the protection was there. And that was my big worry. And, obviously we work hard for our money. I don't want to shell it out for no reason, but definitely by the end of, standing next to you guys for 2 days, hearing all the ins and out and all the questions, like, I was like, man, that sounds right. All right. I'm like, here, take my money. Cause it just made sense.
Imagine our job to, first of all, people don't know they need us. That's any of the legal defense companies. They don't know they need that. So we have to educate them on that. Then we have to delve into the nitty gritty to explain why we stand head and shoulders above all the others, because of basically a holistic approach and an attitude of, we are a company that exists for one reason: to defend members against a self-defense legal proceeding. And in a lot of companies, that might be their philosophy, but they become so large and so corporate that they end up so far from their original mission from when they founded their company that they become corporate and they become self-serving and self-involved. And yeah, we're covering our members. We spent money to get that guy an attorney. Meanwhile, you couldn't get hold of your attorney in the times when you wanted to talk to him about something that was panicking you in the process. And because of the foundation, the founding of CCW Safe, I think that philosophy carries through. One of the founders, well, two of the founders were both retired cops. One was working for a multi-jurisdictional agency, got involved in a self-defense incident on the job, and had unbelievable protection through his FOP, not only from the legal part, but the support part, make sure the family's okay, making sure he gets psychological counseling, all of that more hands-on thing. And that's what was the genesis of CCW Safe was, man, if cops can have this, we ought to make sure citizens can have this. And everybody has their own form of it, but CCW Safe has the most effective through all phases of the process in defending people.
Yeah. I mean, I think here, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, the big things that stood out to me that were exciting were, one, like you said, the guys are going to answer the phone. You're going to be able to get to somebody who matters, right away. You're sending out somebody, if it's a homicide, you're sending out somebody to kind of check out the case and kind of see things and gather kind of evidence in your favor. Is that right? Which is awesome to me because nobody else is doing that. Or
you can buy
nobody, right?
private or expert witness investigation. You have to pay extra for it. It's inherent in our program.
That's huge, right? So obviously, you have the big network of attorneys. Now, you had mentioned when prepper camp that you can choose your own attorney as well.
Yeah,
right?
If you know of a good criminal defense attorney, they have to pass our vetting process, which is basically our experienced attorneys making sure you have the experience and certification and what have you. But yeah, you can choose your own attorney
to do it. You can. So that's awesome. I mean, I'd rather go with who you guys think is the right guy in my mind, but because you have the experience, I assume if you're paying for the defense, your goal would be to win and get it over with quickly and efficiently, in my mind, instead of, hey, let's put somebody lousy up there and drag this out for, who knows? So that's huge. Definitely the insurance aspect with the recoupment, that's a big, thing. If, having to pay that would be
imagine
huge.
Being convicted of some form of manslaughter or homicide, facing prison,
you didn't
losing
feel
your
you
job,
committed,
losing your house. Oh, meanwhile, we're going to kick you one more time and take back the money we spent on you. I mean, imagine how devastating that would be. And that is in the law. That is how those companies operate.
And they're obligated to operate. Yeah. So that's exactly. Tough with the insurance. Right. So, wow. No, so that was it. That was kind of what sold me. I was like, oh, all that kind of really matters. And plus you're on the cheaper end of,
we're less expensive. We have hundreds of thousands of members. We're an economically run company. We have some competitors who own G5 Gulfstream private jets. We just drive regular cars all the way up to the president of the company, and everybody. And one of the things that really convinced me that CCW Safe was the right choice for me was they take all profit and put it into an extra backing fund that they never intend to ever hit, but they put it in there as in case we have 40,000 self-defense incidents across the country, which is never going to happen unless something weird changes. But they're very conscientious about making sure they are financially stable, rather than the founders going, you know what, we profited, I don't know, 800,000. Me and the other guy want to split 400,000. It goes into the fund to keep the company very solvent. As a matter of fact, we are looking to purchase other companies that are struggling in this industry, and not as a move to become a Goliath in this industry, to clean up the industry, to have members of those companies under the philosophy of protection that CCW Safe offers.
That's awesome. Because you need the protection, and it is so inexpensive in the scheme of things, with what it protects you against. And the thing is, if you carry every day, I mean, if you're somebody who carries a firearm, we'll say on the regular, whether it's every day or whatever, but that it matters. You're gonna eventually, if you're tied where you can't use it, where you're gonna hesitate even more. I mean, like you said, your first choice should always be to hesitate, because there's always some kind of consequence that's going to be very unpleasant. And there's no doubt about that. I understand that the duty to retreat, but in your mind, whether you're even legally obligated to or not, because I just see juries and I see, the general population. I know people, and it's scary out there.
I don't run across 12 people in a day that I would trust to have the ability to decide my
to hold your life in their hands. That doesn't sound good. Now I have one. So I put a link in the show notes so everybody can check it out. It's CCW safe, but if you use my link, it'll basically send some, affiliate stuff our way, which is awesome. Help out the channel.
It does. It takes the complication out of the examining the programs by looking at your link, because our website shows all possible programs for former law enforcement, and those are confusing. So everyone should use your link to take a look.
I like that. That's always the right answer. So that'll be in the show notes. You guys can check it out. I can.
And if anyone wants to call me for more information, if you want to put my number out there, they can call me, and I'll be happy to answer their questions relative to this podcast as well as just in general.
Definitely worth checking out. Like I said, when I was talking to all my buddies, it was like a no-brainer because I'm like, yeah, here are the benefits. And they're like, yeah, that all sounds great. And then when I got to the price, they're like, oh, and they were like, a year? They're like, I'm paying almost that a month. And I'm like, oh, and that's different,
The problem is, and this is why I'm so motivated, and I don't know where I'm getting my energy from other than this is probably a God-driven mission of some kind, but people buy because someone convinces them they need it. I mean, and if you think about it,
right.
I buy my Allstate car insurance because I trust my Allstate agent and Allstate. Do I read my policy?
Yeah.
No. And the problem is, and this is where our approach is in wanting to acquire other companies, we'd like to clean up that aspect of it and be able to deliver to people what we're saying to them in a short period of time that we can deliver, not well, there's some exceptions here and you didn't understand that. And yeah, you can pick your own attorney. And I'll give an example of a competitor who has an insurance-based product. And I think this is funny is if you inquire with them about their attorney, because they don't have a 24-hour hotline. You call their hotline, they're going to give you a list of 5 attorneys in your area that you can choose from. Now, if the question I asked of them was, well, how do I vet those attorneys if I don't know? Well, you can go online and research them. And my next question was, if I'm sitting in a county jail after killing someone, what are my opportunities to vet those people? It's too arduous of a process to go through after the aftermath of something as life-changing as a deadly force situation. So it's important to research. I find that people, when I'm at an event or something and someone comes up and tells me they are with CCW Safe, they are always a conscientious person, a person who realized before they ever got into concealed carry all the topics that you and I have discussed over the last 45 minutes. And right. They realize they're going to need some kind of legal protection. A large percentage, too large of a percentage of people just think they'll be protected by the system, and they won't. And right. The best line I ever heard, it's not mine, was you get all the justice you can afford in the U.S. judicial system. Yeah.
That sounds right. No, absolutely. So quick, I know your time's valuable, and I don't want to get away from things, but in the comments here on the side, everybody's worried about, and then this is kind of an unrelated, but you're the guy who would know about, they're always kind of basically trying to infringe on the Second Amendment. And, California used to talk about the micro stamping with the bullets and the things like that, and things to whatever. I know people had mentioned things like going after gun manufacturers after a shooting, things like that. Do you see in the future as a possibility, kind of requiring insurance for or something along that line for having a concealed carry?
There has been some conversation about that in some of the more liberal states up in the Northeast, and requiring that as a part of it. Now, the states or the government, the government's mindset is more for protection of the person you killed or others or something else. I think everyone should have legal defense coverage for their own protection. So yes, right. I don't want it government mandated. And in some of these government situations, the insurance would go to cover the guy you killed who was just trying to tear your head off. And that's their mentality. My motivation is protect yourself while you're protecting yourself, because actually you're running naked if you're carrying a firearm without adequate legal defense. And you've got to make I tell people, you don't like me, you don't like the logo we have, you don't like our company, and you don't think our coverage is as good, have somebody's. At least you'll have something. But I can tell you, I've been in this business a long time. I have deep experience in the judicial system, and I know how other companies operate, and I am with CCW Safe because they are the best in the industry. Not because of them paying me to say that. I wouldn't be working for them.
Right. By choice. Yeah.
So
I like it. So I will put your phone number in the show notes if you want, and I will do that. So if they have questions, obviously you guys know you can reach out to me, and I can get an answer from Ken here too if the need arises. I have them on speed dial, so when there's a problem, we can get them in there. So anyway, questions, concerns, email us at preppingbadass@gmail.com. Otherwise, I'd say stay safe. And again, before I run out of here, Ken, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Chuck. I appreciate the opportunity to get the word out.
It's worth getting out. I really do think it matters.
Yeah,
so that's awesome. So with that, stay safe, and we'll talk to you guys next week.